Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Our program will begin in just a moment. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Our program will begin in just a moment. Good day and welcome to Advocacy Anywhere, powered by American Jewish Committee. Advocacy Anywhere is AJC's digital platform that enables you to engage with AJC's global expertise, content, and advocacy from wherever you are. We are delighted to be joined today by Ms. Toby Levy, a retired accountant, a volunteer docent for the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York City, and a Holocaust survivor. Earlier this month, Ms. Levy wrote a very powerful and must-read op-ed in the New York Times about how she remains hopeful that the COVID-19 pandemic will not steal her last years, just as the Holocaust stole her youth. Moderating today's timely conversation, which comes one day before International Holocaust Remembrance Day is observed around the world, is AJC's Chief Innovation Officer and Senior Advisor to the CEO, Bel Yoeli. After we hear from Bel and our esteemed guest, time permitting, we will take your questions. You may email your question to questions@ajc.org, that's questions plural, or use the Q&A feature in Zoom. Bel, I now turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and good day to our worldwide audience. Toby, it's an honor to be with you today, and thank you so much again for taking the time to join this American Jewish Committee program. As Daniel said, tomorrow is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and I can't think of anything more important in marking this day and in the lead up to it than hearing firsthand from a Holocaust survivor like yourself. So Toby, let's start there. You're a survivor, and as I've learned from you and from many others, you've shared your story far and wide. So for those of us who are on this call who have not yet had the privilege of sharing your story, can you please tell it to us?
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of my story. Thank you for having me, number one. As I love to talk to young people. They give me inspiration, they give me hope, and whatever they can learn from me will be in handy for them later on in life. So I'll give you a little bit of a background where I come from. I come from a very small town. The name is Chodorov. Now it's Ukraine. At the time I was born, it was Poland. I was born the year Hitler came to power, 1933, power. My part of Poland was a little bit far away from Germany, so I was closer to the Russian border than to the German border. We didn't have a big Jewish community, small. Life at my time of life when I was born and a little further on was beginning to be a little bit better for the Jews. My father, his name was Moses Eisenstein. He was a soldier in the First World War, 1914. He was 18 years old and he was fighting on the German side. He had a German uniform. He was a soldier for the Germans. That was in 1914. 1918, the war ended. He came home. It was tough, but eventually I think settled in. So it was beginning to get, the year I was born, later on, like 2-3 years, it was beginning to be a little bit better for the Jews. We had a small community. We lived close to each other in the center of town. My grandparents, great-grandparents, further away a little bit. Just as the German Jews were having a better time, we did too. By 1939, though, when Hitler came to power and really started discussing, so 33, 34, 35, the German Jews began to see what Hitler told them he's going to do. He told them to leave, but they didn't believe. Don't forget, my part of Poland is a little too far away from Germany. We did not have the communication you have today. So we knew something is going on in Germany, but somehow we didn't connect the dots that it's going to hit Poland the same way as it hit German Jews. Do you understand what I'm saying? We felt we are unique here. We talked, the Jews have never had such an experience as this particular one when Hitler came to power. The Jews had pogroms many of times. It was disturbance, it was killing, it was destroying, it was chasing out from one place to the other, but nothing similar to the one where the Germans were planning, systematically planning, nothing like it. So no one had experience to understand it. What was happening to Germany, the Jews couldn't go to school, they couldn't work, they couldn't have jobs, the men were fired, the women were still working. It was not understood by us. We didn't add the dots. This is why I want to point out, I want you to understand, I'm going back for 1 minute. I'll give you an example. When things happening in Pittsburgh, remember, was it a year ago, 2 years ago? New York Jews were trembling, but hey, it didn't happen here. I was upset. To me, it was a reminder. I took it differently. But the majority, I was in the museum, we were talking to people, it happened there. That's the point I'm trying to bring. I lived where I was, it happened in Germany, not in Poland. So we went on like as usual. However, in 1939, Hitler made a pact with the Russians. They divided Europe on their own, divided Europe. Hitler occupied half of Europe, the Russians the other half. I was occupied by the Russians. My husband, for instance, was occupied by because his part of Poland was close to Germany. So when he was occupied in 1939 from the Germans, he was 12. He and his brothers and his father were taken to labor camps right away, labor camps. Where I, on the other hand, had the Russians. My father understood that the Russians will be nothing like the Germans, but we were afraid. What did he do? He closed his store, he had a store, he was a merchant, he had a material store, yard goods. So what did he do? Took this material and hid it, 3 full sacks of material. The store was empty. So the Russians walked in. They said, he's not a bourgeois, he's not a rich man. They gave him a job. Life went on okay by us. My sister, I had an older sister, 4.5 years older than I. She went to school. I didn't go to school yet. In Europe, you don't go to school till 7, I think, and I was only 6. So life was okay. So the Jews that were occupied by the Germans, some of them bordered to the Russian border, were able to run away. We already somehow, we knew it's not the same as it was. So those that were able to run away from the German side came over to our side. And of course, the Jews who took everybody in, they understood, but again, I have to emphasize this over and over. No one understood the depth of it. And if they did, no one believed it. They said, it's impossible, it cannot be, that shall pass. This is not real. He doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't mean what. The same conversations as we find excuses sometimes today. 1941, so 1939, I'm okay. We have, my life is still, it's different, but it's still okay. The German Jews already, 1939, went to camps, went to labor camps. It already started. We began to understand, because the one that ran away from the German side told us what's happening. But there was no place to go. Because any place to go, you needed visas. That's the next issue. No neighbor country could you go because it was occupied either by the Russians or by the Germans. Out to the United States, United States did not let anybody in so fast. They said very clearly, the White House said very clearly, we have enough of our own Jews. Even if you had a visa, they were told, postpone the visa. So many people had visas to go to the United States. Very few got out. Only if you knew somebody in the States to get you out on your visa. 1941, Germany broke the pact with Russia and started occupying the part that Russia occupied. So my town had a lumber yard, a sugar factory, and a train station, which is a big deal for a small town in Europe. We were about half an hour driving to Lvov, which is a huge city, a beautiful big city with a lot of Jews. So the trains, the army started running back to Russia on the train. Very few civilians were able to get on, but the young people with no families, they were able to get on. In fact, some of my first cousins got on the train, able to run away with Russia, and they joined the Russian army. My father wanted to run. The four of us were just four. He would leave the whole family, pack the four of us, and get to the train, starting to get. We could not get on the train. So what does he do? He takes a horse and buggy, because there was no cars. Okay, no cars. No one knew how to drive, and nobody had a car. So we get a horse and buggy, and we start running. So we get to further we get away from our hometown, but the Germans are going faster because no one stopped them. No Polish army stopped them. There was no army, no Russian army stopped them. Everybody put their guns down. So we're running, and my father says the Germans are catching up with us. And then he says we are stuck. He's talking to my mom. Then we are stuck in a town we don't know anybody. I think he said we should go back to our hometown because there at least everybody knows us. Already he was thinking, trying to show you his thoughts. All my life, I'm learning from his thoughts. All my life, I tried to do what he would do because he was so clever. So he says, I'm better off going home. So we can't get on the train, I'm better off. So we're turning back home to Khodorov, going back to our house. Sure enough, I don't know if it took weeks or days. The Germans, 1941, the Germans walk into my town, to Khodorov. None of them were soldiers tired. So the first day, what did they do? Ask all the Jews to come out into the Rinnig. A Rinnig is a square on the city. The city is built like a square, housing around and stores, like all over the square. My father had a store on the square because my paternal grandfather owned that building. So in each floor, one of his children lived. We had 4 people, 2 rooms, 1 bedroom. Not 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom. And I'm not sure, I don't remember if we had a bathroom in the house, okay? Okay, I think it was downstairs in the hall. So, and on the ground floor, my aunt lived with the children. So in my father, and we lived 1 flight up, my grandfather, my grandmother, I never knew. She must have died before I was born, but I knew my paternal grandfather. Very nice. So, we are in the center of town. The Germans are asking all the Jews come in the center of town. Everybody comes out. Those that lived a little further away, they stayed, but the majority lived in the square because you have your synagogue, you have your market, you have everything that you need close to. I call it the Jews make their own ghetto. We live in our own ghetto. I like living between Jews. I'm comfortable. Same thing I did when I moved here. I like living between Jews. I'm very comfortable. Right now, I'm living in a different world, but it's okay now. Now it's okay. I will not forget that first experience meeting. First of all, I was so small, so all I remember is the boots. The boots, the fancy boots, the soldiers, the handsome, the dressing. But they were screaming at us, screaming at the Jews, screaming, not telling us orders, but screaming. Their voices I hear all the time, their tone of voice. You're no longer citizens. You have no more rights. You have everything you have is ours. Everybody goes to work. We can do with you what we want. You have to wear an armband. You have to make it yourself 5 inches wide, white, with a blue star in the center. You can't be caught. On and orders. And I'm hearing these screams, and I'm not used to it. What was I, 8 years old? I'm glad my father's holding my right side. I says, what are they screaming for? You know, what I never forget too? My father turns to me on the right side and he says, quiet, but screaming at me. My father never screamed at us, never. And I kind of understood this is bad. The next thing they do is they show us an example who we are. They take one man at a small little beard, not a big, wouldn't say a big beard, tiny little beard here. They cut his beard. They push him on his hand and feet. A German puts his foot on his back. I want you to picture that. Puts his foot on his back. And with his hand, he says, this is who you are now. This is what you are worth now. We can do with you what we want. When we come upstairs to the house, my father says, none of us are making. This is not the same Germans that we knew from before. From the German owned was an empire. In 1914, Germany was an empire. German Hofstra German Empire. My father says, without help from outside, none of us will make it. He was lucky, got a job working in the lumber yard. My mom had to report every day to the Gestapo. And my father said to my sister, she was 4.5 years older than I, you two stay home, you don't go out. Because if we go out with the armband, the German knows who I am, because you can't go out in the street without an armband. If I go out without it, I didn't look Jewish. I spoke a perfect Polish. That was my mother tongue. I had no other language. So if I go out without it, the German doesn't know I'm Jewish. I could go free, but the Pole will give me out. The Pole will, or the Ukraine will give me. So I had no chance. So my sister and I staying home, my parents go to work. Only once do I remember, which I never tell this to when I speak to small children, do I remember a horrible, horrible sight. A little girl was sitting on the steps and crying. A German officer passes by, just walks by, is annoyed with the child. My sister and I sat and looked out the window. What was there to do? Look out the window. City's empty. No market, quiet, dead. This girl is crying, the police passes by, picks up the child with one hand, just like that, takes a pistol and shoots her. The child falls down on the floor. My sister and I started shaking. We started holding hands, what to do. We hid underneath the kitchen table, waiting for our parents to come home. When our parents came home, we tell them what happened. My father turns to us and says, from now on, you don't stay by the window, sit underneath the table. Didn't bother to explain it. Many years, of course, I asked him, why didn't you explain? He says, what could I explain? That I can't protect my own children? I am worthless? I have no power? I myself am not? What can I tell you? Would you understand what I would have told you? No. I said, no. And I still didn't understand. And I still till today don't understand. I want to get to the point. My father worked in a lumber yard. My father was born in the heart of, his parents were born there. And his grandparents were born there. And he was a merchant. So he knew a lot of people. He was very well liked in town by the Jews and the non-Jews. He was a good man. So one of the guys that he knew comes over to my father and says, there's going to be a big aktia. Aktia means dragging you out from your house, not taking, but dragging you, pushing you, hitting you, commanding you, shooting you, and doing whatever they want with you because you don't look like a human to them. They humanize their mind to look at you. He says to my father, you better find a good hiding place because this is serious. My father did find a very good hiding place. He was, every house in Europe has a cellar. huge cellar that you go down, not from the house, from the street, because I don't think we had refrigerators, okay? So that cellar serves as a refrigerator too. So, but it's a full floor down to the cell, all the way to the earth, a full flight, but from outside. What did he do? He figured out he'll make the cellar door wall, the cellar smaller. He built a new wall. Where did he get the stuff to build from? He worked in a lumber yard. So he stole the lumber, the bricks and the mortar, what he needed, and built at night. To get into the hiding, into the cellar, would not be from the street because people would see us. So in his sister's apartments, and in Europe, the stoves are huge, different stove. They built in, it's very a built-in stove. What if you do is cut out underneath the stove a hole for a person to be able to roll down and fall down. So he realized if we fall down, when we roll in, we'll be too low down, we'll get hurt. So he put a platform of panels, like a platform. On the platform, you put bedding, so when we roll down, we're not gonna get hurt. But to get in, it was from the kitchen underneath the stove. And then when we got into the hiding, he would have on that square a piece of cord to pull it down. You could not, when you walked in the kitchen, you would not see that anything is underneath there. He had it ready when the guy comes to him and says to him, I think it's going to be this weekend. We had a chance to find a hiding place. I'm sure he told the rest of the family, but sure enough, we go into hiding Friday night, and it's Saturday we hear knocking and picking up everybody from the building. My grandfather, my paternal grandfather, lived with his daughter on the apartment, with my aunt on the ground floor. She went in hiding with us. We went 4 and she was 5. There were 2 boys and an infant of a baby girl. But my grandfather did not want to go. He says, I'd rather die now than later see you get killed. Sure enough, when the Germans in the morning come in and tell him to go, he don't want to go. They shot him, and we heard it. Very, very late in the afternoon, Saturday, we thought maybe we got away already. The Germans opened up the door. I was not the youngest to go. I was not the youngest. My cousins were younger, but I was a little maybe too far from my mom. All I gave a shiver, and I said very, very quietly, just like this, just like this, My mom grabbed my hand, but they heard a noise. So they're starting to go down the stairs. My aunt puts a pillow on the infant baby. None of us were breathing. We were scared. Okay, there's a wall. He put a lot of junk against the wall, but still, if they go looking and touch that wall, it could easily fall apart. It's a thin wall. As they're going down, a cat jumps out and gives a big meow, and the Germans start laughing. It's only a Katze. It's only a cat. They're turning around and walking away. We realized we made it this time. We sat there 2 days, and we were afraid to go out because we didn't know when it's ended. My mom's sister came calling. She knew we was someplace, but no one knew where we are. We had an amazing hide. The whole town was talking about my father's hiding place later on. No way could we go in this hiding place again. Anyway, shortly after that, whoever was not enough, we probably didn't, we had under 5,000 Jews in the whole of Chodov with the villages around it. So one big aktia, in a couple of times they picked up the old, and my maternal grandfather went the first truck when they picked up. So the Germans used language of deception. This is a known fact. Okay, let's assume I know it's a deception, but there was nothing we can do. So if somebody says to you, the Jews followed like sheep, it's wrong. It's not right, because we had no place to go. There was no one there to say, take this road or that road, or go up or go high. Everybody was against you. It's not just the Germans, It's the environment, it's the Poles, it's the Ukrainians, it's any other one. So you had no choice. If they told you they're taking you there, even if you knew they're lying, there was nothing you can do about it. It's either they kill you now or they kill you tomorrow. But my father, I don't know, he said he comes home and tells my mom what's happening because he knew he always used to get information because he always snooped around in the lumber yard. And he turns to my mom and says, I don't believe them and I'm not going. Where are you going to go? What are we going to do? He says, I don't know. Right now, I know I don't believe them. He tells it to the remainder family. My dad's family at this time was all gone. My mom still had her sister, 2 brothers, and her mother. That's her side. So he tells them he is not going, and he tells my uncles this. One uncle was single, one uncle was married and had 1 son. He tells him, my uncle says, I have no choice. I have to go. I don't see, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but it's a big city, it's a big ghetto. Maybe they want all the Jews together. It makes sense. My father said, no. What do you want? What are you going to do, Moshe? He says, I'm going to look for somebody to hide us. My aunt, my mom's sister, she had 2 younger children, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old. I was 8 years old, going to 9, and that's the children. So she said, my aunt says to my father, I'll go with you, let's look together. They go, they find a woman. Her name is Stephanie Struck. She has no husband. The husband was a conductor on the train. So when the Russians ran back, he drove that train back. He never came back. You're going to ask me, we always wondered why she did it. We thought she was, because we had no money to give her. That's out of the question. Had no money. Only thing my father had were the sacks of material that he hid when the Russians came in, which is 1941. He didn't touch that, he had it hidden. So he had nothing to give her. But she said she'll take us. How many people are we? We were supposed to be 9, 10, but only 9 came around. So it's us 4, my aunt and uncle, and 2 younger children, and my mom's mother, 9 people. So where are we hiding? She lives in the center of town. I know I always pass the center of town because when we used to go to my maternal grandmother, they lived near the train station because they had a little farm there. So that's, I remember where it is, center of town. But every house in Europe has a barn. I'm sure you all know what a barn looks like. It's made out of panels, wood. It's small, it's not big. So she said, so my father says, okay, I'll divide and the barn, make the barn a little bit smaller inside. I'll give you, I don't have money, but I'll give you material for us to buy. Material in Europe is like gold here. It's so valuable because they don't have any ready-made clothing. Everybody sews themselves. So he says, here's a sack full of material, buy some livestock. So you'll have an excuse to bring food to the barn. So she bought a pig and chickens. They were in one corner, we were in another corner. So our space for 9 people was exactly 4 feet, I think, by 5. The length of a person. 5 people this way, 4 people, head and toe, head and toe. This is how we slept. If one person got up in the morning, all 9 of us would have to get up. One wants to turn in the middle of the night, all would have to turn. Couldn't take it bigger because the barn itself wasn't big. So we children and women went in hiding earlier. The 2 men stayed working till the very last minute. Very last minute when they started picking up the people to take to Lvov, somehow everybody had an intuition that something is wrong because everybody was running in a different direction. So a lot of people were shot. And one single uncle that was supposed to go with the 2 brother-in-laws in our hiding place never made it. But my father made it and my uncle. So we're 9 people. 2 weeks later, Stephanie comes in and tells us there wasn't one single Jew left in Kharkov. She said, sit still. Of course, we're sitting still. What is there to do? There was not much we can do. During the day, we would go out in the middle of the barn, stretch our legs. She used to have the barn closed because she had livestock there. She didn't want anybody to steal it, so we were safe that the door was closed. 3 months into our hiding, 3 people are standing and stretching their legs. The rest of us are sitting back here looking out. All of a sudden, the barn door opens up. Stephanie's standing in the middle, like me in the middle. A Ukrainian police on the right-hand side looking in. The barn is pitch dark. When you open the door, all the sun came in, very, very sunny. She knew she has Jews there. He didn't know. He didn't see. If he saw us, I wouldn't be here. He looked, so the picking chicken started running towards the door because the light was in. He was looking at the picking chicken. She was looking at the Jews. I don't know how many minutes she was standing there paralyzed, but she realized what it is. And he is busy looking here, not here. He was, I don't know. He was blinded. He was blinded. That's it. Otherwise, he had to see us and he didn't. Eventually, she closes the door. She goes away, comes back a couple of hours later and tells us, you have to leave. I'm scared to hold you. I have 2 children. He saw you. My father says, no, he didn't. Please go ask him and you'll see. She said, I don't care. You have 2 nights to go. Okay, you have to go. We can't force her to keep us. Where do we go? We decided to, so my mom and my aunt went out. They dressed like babushkas. They went out to their neighbors to see if somebody will take us in. We would have to go out all the way out of the city. They were afraid to go. They're coming back. I don't think it's going to work. We're 9 people. We have to split over. No, we decided to go to the forest. There is a forest. It's not far. You have to pass. We're in the middle of the city. You have to pass a half a city. There's a little bit of water. You can pass it. And then another walk, and there is a forest. In fact, some young people had 2 hiding places in the forest. One group made it. And one group was caught. In one group, you could make it. There was during the day they were hiding. At night, they used to go out and steal food. Anyway, we're getting dressed to go. So as we're getting dressed, my mom is dressing me, my sister, getting dressed. We're leaving tonight. My father says to my mom, I think I changed my mind. I'm not going. Okay, Betty is big enough to understand my instructions. So he has 3 or 4 names of Polish people that he knows very well. He says to my sister, and my mom says to me, Toby, from now on, you have to listen to Betty. I already grabbed my sister's hand because I obey orders. I hold her hand. I don't ask questions. I realize something is going on here, more frightful than anything you can imagine. So he says to her, here's 3 addresses. Any one of these will hide you. Now I want you to know, I know the war will end, but I don't know when. If we're going to the forest, if we don't make it, they're going to come people to look for survivors. And if they don't look for you, you look for them. He was addresses. I have 2 addresses. I had an aunt, my mom's sister, my father's brother went to Palestine. How did they get there in 1937? They had a visa. They were able to get out. They had a visa. So they went to Palestine. They were both single. And then my father had cousins in the United States. He gives Betty the addresses from both. And he tells her instructions. My aunt and uncle couldn't do that because the kids were too young. Stephanie, we never called her by her name Stephanie. We used to call her Prince. Prince is a Jewish word for princess, queen. pleads it. She's my queen. She's my savior. We couldn't admire her enough. We couldn't give her enough kavod, how you say it. She knew that we're not going to make it to the forest. 9 people going in the middle of the night to the forest. Somebody's going to see us. One has to want to see us. Our dog. Well, so what does she do? She goes to the Ukraine police and she says to him, listen, you know who I am. I'm Mrs. So-and-so. You know my family. You know my sister. They had a bakery. You remember my husband. You rushed away. Why did you come? What were you looking for? He says, Mrs. Strong, you bought livestock. I came to register it. She's asking questions again and again. He keeps singing one song. He came to register. So she realized he did not see. She's walking home and she knows we're leaving, but she can't chase us. She comes home. She has 2 children, a 19-year-old daughter, 16-year-old son. They didn't know about us. She tells the 2 children what she has in the barn and that we're leaving tonight. Why? Because what happened? The 16-year-old boy, his name was Tajik, says to mom, you can't chase them. They'll never make it. I will help you. Maybe together we can save them. You know, I speak twice a day, but when I get to this part, I am not sad. I am like, I feel human. There is a human being. You looked at us as humans. And Tajik says to his older sister, he says to her, you're 19. You're socializing with the Germans. You stay out. You're out. It's mom and I. I'll never forget Tajik opened up the door. This, not a big husky guy, 16-year-old small little guy, opens up the door and says, my name is Tajik. You're not going anyplace. This is not a good hiding place. I will make it better. He went up a layer. There was a layer higher. He put more hay because it was cold. It was cold. The panels are cold. Air comes in. He put hay all around. And the bedding that we gave her, for her, our beddings, Europe, everybody has down beddings because it's so cold. She gave us the beddings, so we were warm. In that place, we could stand, we could sit, we could sleep comfortable. That's where we sat for 2 years. We had lice, rats, this size, mice, but they got used to us, we got used to them. We learned not to talk, not to laugh, not to cry, not to do anything, not to sneeze. The only big problem was food. No way could she deliver food for 9 food. Our only diet was bread and potatoes. This is where we stayed for 2 years. We were liberated in 1944 by the Russians. Do you want me to tell you a little bit about the hiding, or you want to ask questions? Or you want me to tell you a little bit in the hiding?
Toby, it's hard to speak in the middle of your story. Why don't you tell us briefly about the hiding, and then of course I want to have time for questions. But I want you to get to tell your story.
I want to look at the time. That's why. So, my father, he never wavered from his religion. He went into hiding with the material, his tefillin, and he did both, the tefillin and the talit. These 3 things. He did that every morning. My uncle, on the other hand, he already was a little more modernized. He didn't believe, and he used to make fun of my father, saying, "This is your God." And my father's answer always was, I'll never forget, God has nothing to do with it. God gave humans decision. God gave human a choice to decide, and this is what they decided. He said, "Look at Stephanie, what she decided." He kept a calendar. Too bad that I didn't save all these little things. We didn't think long term. Every day he would write what happened to this day. And every day he used to say to us, somebody has to survive to tell the world. Maybe it's us. He used to tell, what else did he teach us? Not to have hatred. He used to say, if you have hate, when we survive, if you have hate, you will not destroy the hater. You will destroy yourself. You will not be able to make a life if you hate. He was trying to tell us that life is not an easy life. He did a good damn job because I don't hate. People ask me all the time, do you help the Germans? No, I hold them responsible, but I don't have a hate. Because if I had hate, I wouldn't be able to be a normal person. It would destroy me. Every Tajik watched that barn 24 hours. Once my uncle wanted to know what time it is, he had a flashlight, he puts it on. My father wanted to kill him after that. And of course, right away, you saw Germans around the barn with their flashlights. Tajik was out with his. Oh, it was me. Tajik played with the young kids, 16-year-old, they played ball. So one time there was a step ladder because a barn is kept all the tools for our gardening. So step ladder is outside and one of his friends starts climbing up on the ladder, and if he puts his nose close to the board, he might see us move. We got very scared when we saw what's happening, so we all lay down flat. But Tajik, what did he do? He grabbed the stepladder under his leg. He said, what do you want to look for? You think I'm hiding Jews? Come, I show you. The barn door is open. He dared them. He dared. Second year in hiding, she took in German officers to live in her house. The barn door was open. They always walked in and out. We said to her, what are you doing? She says, I'm doing it for me. I'm safer and I have more food. We couldn't complain on that. We had to. What my father was teaching then, he wanted to make sure that I can learn the alphabet. I learned to the alphabet, I learned in hiding. Multiplication table, I learned in hiding. Writing Yid in Jewish, the alphabet. In reading, I read in hiding. My grandma was teaching us crochet and crocheting and knitting to keep our mind busy. But main time we were, me and the other 3 kids, watching out through the panels what the world looks like and what the children outside can do. But the minute we were liberated, I wanted to do what those kids were doing there. I'll stop here because I want to leave for questions. I know I take too long.
No, Toby, you didn't take too long.
Liberated in 44 by the Russians. When we crawled out of our hiding place, none of us could talk, none of us could laugh, but we looked at each other and we said, is it possible? And who do you think the Russians were? Little boy soldiers, not big men. And they said to us, yes, it's possible, but if you eat, you will die. Again, we were lucky. If we would have eaten, we would have died. Don't eat. Go to somebody who will nourish you. Because she had left the last 2 weeks in hiding, was terrible bombing. She left us alone with the Germans, and every other house was the roofs off except ours was standing. So is that a miracle or not? Okay, you take it from there. I think so. Okay, I'll stop.
No, Toby, not at all. I personally am somewhat paralyzed by your very powerful story. And I think I speak for everyone that's watching when I say that we're all better people for having heard it. And I can't thank you enough for sharing it with us. I will ask you I know we're short on time. I do want to ask you a couple of quick questions, and hopefully we can sneak in an audience question.
That's why I stopped.
No, not at all. So, let me ask you this. You're a survivor, this huge experience that has this monumental experience as a part of who you are. And I have to ask you today, given everything that's going on in the world for the Jewish people, whether it's anti-Semitism and its resurgence, or living in an era where Israel exists and there is a Jewish state, what is the contemporary meaning of the Holocaust for you? And what is it when you see and you think of when you look around to be a Jew in this world today? What does it mean to you?
I'm very scared. Not for me, because I'm old. I'm scared for you, for my kids and my grandkids, that you will not understand when it hits you. You will do the same when we did not add the dots. However, wait, however, we have an Israel and we don't need a visa. Okay? So I'll have enough money. I'll leave everything. I'll have enough money. I'm old already. Have enough money to pack and to fly to Israel. So I am sad, but yet I'm not, I'm happy because I I see America not in a good position right now. Maybe it'll change. Maybe, I don't know. Anti-Semitism, it's been growing slowly, but it's in the open now because in the higher, in their colleges. They created it. I don't know. The Jews cannot fight anti-Semitism alone. It's got to be the other side too. And if you don't help from the other, then it's not going to work because you can't do it. We can't do it ourselves. Okay? So the anti-Semitism is here. The very important thing is to understand it and to see where it comes from. The colleges, that took years to happen where it is. The colleges is where I worry the most because that's where the young people go and they come out and they know very little because there weren't not enough education at home, not enough education in the schools in ours to understand why a Jew is being hated, which I don't understand why. My father always said to me, I don't know why, but you, Toby, you are young enough to understand. So please learn and understand and see if you can change. Well, I'm old. I understand. I can't change. I can only tell.
And we at AJC, of course, share your concern. And it sounds like you telling your story is your way of fighting back against that lack of knowledge.
That's what I'm trying to do. Yes. Yes. You have another question?
Yeah, let me ask you one more and then we'll get in some audience questions. I want to ask you about your op-ed, and for those who haven't read it, the title in the New York Times is "The Holocaust Stole My Youth, COVID-19 is Stealing My Last Years." That's a very intense title, but it really had a hopeful message at the end about, so I want to ask you, what was the goal behind writing that piece?
I talk like that. I talk to my friends that didn't see my name in the article says, this is Toby, because I feel that way. I didn't have a childhood. I was 6 years old, I didn't have a childhood. I didn't have a teenage years. I never learned to ride a bike. I never learned anything. I learned all this when I was 18 years old when I came to the United States. That's a long time. 17, excuse me. So to me, that's how I feel. However, I see an end of it. I do see. I will never forget. I told you every question you're going to ask, I'm going to have a long answer. I will never forget when we were in hiding. The first year, she told us nothing what's going on in the war. Second year, one time, she gives us 3 knocks. That means she wants to talk. So we talk to her. She says, I see an opening at the end, a light. The Russians are pushing back the Germans. This is what I saw that. That's why I expressed that I'm 87 I see a light at the end. There's a vaccine out, hopefully. I already got one. And and I try to tell people, stay away. Like my children are very, very strict. My daughter, forget it. She can't go near her. She's right. I try. I wear a mask. I never go. I go by myself. I'm by myself in the house. So if everybody did the right thing and the vaccine is there, I think the end this year should be the end. Middle of the year should be the end. I feel that way. So there is hope. Without hope, it's difficult to make it. The minute we knew that there was coming hope, I don't care how long it took, but it came.
And we will hold on to that hope. And I'm personally very happy, Toby, that you got the vaccine. That's very, very good news.
Yes.
Let me turn it over, especially, I know there are some young people who definitely want to ask questions. Daniel, let me turn it back to you to read some of the audience questions.
Sure. Thank you both. I know we have limited time, but I do want to get to a few of these. So our first question actually.
If you stay longer. That's
Our
me.
first question comes from Abe Baker Butler, who will be an incoming freshman at Yale in the fall. He's asking, as an incoming student, how should I be prepared if I hear these comparisons between how Israel treats the Palestinians and how the Nazis treated the population in Germany and the
Okay,
Jews in Germany? How do you respond to these accusations?
very easy. He has to be educated. It's all false. If the Nazis treated the way the Jews treat the Palestinians, it would have been 6 million Jews alive. Okay? He has to get educated in Jewish history. He has to go to Israel and see what it looks like. He's not educated. That's the problem, the big problem. He doesn't know the history. He only knows what he reads the paper or what the CNN and the other stations tell him. I'm sorry. He's got to go to more stations. Got to find there is a Jewish station that tells Jewish history. There is a JBS, a Jewish station. He's got to get educated. Not if somebody tells him stories, he's got to make sure they're true because they're all lies. Lie. This is how a lie starts. The same as in Europe. The DBS didn't start in the United States. It started in the 1930s in Germany. Slowly you tell lie, you keep repeating, people keep believing. How can I reach these young people that they have to know the history and they have to know what Israel is like? If somebody compares, they've got to put up a big fight for it because it's a lie left and right. The teachers, the college teachers, they allow it because I'm not getting involved in politics. I don't know how more to explain to that young man or young woman, whoever she is or he is. You've got to be intelligent. Before you go to school, read about more in Israel, read what is going on, how the Jews are treating the Palestinians. How dare anybody even put in the same word. And if anybody compares, I have no language to use on that person because no way can you compare it. How can you dare? If you are allowed to compare it, then you're just as guilty. This is what I say. And you have to be intelligent and to know history to be able to refute it. That's the only, you must be intelligent enough. You must know enough Jewish history. Very important. Now the history of, even now the Israeli history you have to know. How they got the country, how Jews always lived there. God, this is an hour by itself. I can't give you more than that. I can give you, he can call me anytime he wants. You can give him my email. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Toby. Our next question comes from Lauren Hillman in St. Louis, who's asking, have you ever personally encountered Holocaust deniers? And if so, how do you, effectively respond? And you spoke about it a bit, but I'm wondering specifically not about people comparing to the current situation, but people actually denying the Holocaust.
I don't go in these circles. How does that sound? But if somebody gives me a comparison, wants to compare, then I don't allow. But if somebody is very set in his mind of denying, it's very difficult to prove it unless you will produce facts and dates. Even then, that person, I've learned, is very difficult to change your mind unless he himself is willing to look into it. Not an easy job. But you can't, I don't allow to compare anything with the Holocaust. If you were not there, you don't have an experience. If you were never in Israel, you don't know how the Jews are treated. Okay, that's enough. Next.
Thank you. And one final question from Lawrence Steinman, who's a student at Rutgers University that read your op-ed in the New York Times and wants to know about your work at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. How did you get involved doing that? And what are the most rewarding parts of your work there?
How I got involved when my husband passed away, I was still working. My husband died, he was 82, he had Parkinson's and cancer, but he died of Parkinson's actually. So I still working because we were my own business, I was able to work. But I didn't want to work 5 days a week. So I looked for a place to volunteer. And one of my friends introduced the museum and they said they don't have a class this to the following year they had. It was perfect what I was looking for because my father always said, when you make it, when you learn, when you get older, I should teach the world what happened. This is what I'm doing. I'm fulfilling my father's wish. What's my most rewarding is when children ask good questions. Like one time I had a girl asking me, did you ever want revenge? I said, I have my revenge. I'm Jewish, I'm alive. I have Jewish children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And in Israel, what more can I have better revenge? I don't have hate to kill. She wrote me a letter and she said, I never knew you can have revenge without killing. To me, this is the reward. That's to schools, I never refuse at any age. Of course, I know what to put in the ages wise. I'm a docent, and then I learned to speak, which I did. I'm doing it for the past 6 years, which I reach hundreds of thousands of kids. If one comes out and asks a good question, and then what I always say, you must be educated. You must read more than one paper. You cannot watch only one television station. You have to know who says the statement. I used to say, when you go vote, pay attention to the person that makes the statement, where it comes from, what he said. This is how I vote. I don't vote what he just gives me bullshit and story. I need to know what he stands for, all his life before and after. This is how so you've got to be educated to know how to answer. You have to have details, and you can't accept 90% is talk that don't make sense to me. I don't listen to stage. I do listen because I want to hear what the other one has to say. I'm sure you got the message how I think.
Toby,
did I give you enough on that issue?
You did. And let me just say, I could listen to you speak for hours, and I wish we had.
I speak another half an hour for sure.
I wish we had endless time with you, and I'm truly sorry that we have to come to a close, because
that's what I told you. I don't want to talk about didn't I tell you that? Okay.
You shared so much with us, and I honestly mean it when I say that you are an inspiration.
Well,
and
if people want to answer questions, you can give them my email, and I did the last time the same. I answered everybody whatever I could.
We will gladly do that. And let me just say, on behalf of the American Jewish Committee and all of our listeners, thank you so much for sharing your story, and that you share your story, and it really, and you continue to share it. It means the world, and you're really doing such a service. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to give you the last word, and then we'll turn it over to Daniel.
The last word is, I want all of you to be my witness. That's the reward I want. What does that mean? I tell it to the kids all the time. The deniers are here, but when I'm just about the youngest survivor, there's a few younger ones, but I'm just about the younger. I'm not going to be long here. When I'm gone, all the deniers are going to come out full force. You have to say no. You know what happened. You hurt Toby. So you have to be my witness. All you young people. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Toby. And I want to thank our entire audience for joining us. And just as a reminder, for tomorrow, which is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, please join the American Jewish Committee at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time as 12 Holocaust survivors, children, and their grandchildren share reflections on their family stories. Each moving and powerful testimony will remind us why, and exactly what Toby had said today, why we must never forget the past and its enduring lessons. So thank you again, everyone, and have a great rest of the day.
What time? I want to watch.
1:00 Eastern Time.
1:00 my time.
Yes. So I hope everyone can join us for these very moving testimonies.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Thank you for telling me.
Thank you, Toby.
Everybody. Have a great year, and don't worry, the pandemic will finish. We'll all get well. It's got to finish. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.